What if I told you there was a character in the game that could kill any other character with one correct guess? A character who had a literal touch of death. But what's the big deal? There are many faults to the Ice Climbers. When they lose their teammate, they get heavily nerfed. They can no longer KO off of grabs. When they're separated or pressured, they're usually at their worst. They become a low tier character really quickly, especially if they lose their teammate or have to fight on their own, as they now lose recovery options, combos, KO power without their partner. They're a glass cannon, grappler, puppet archetype. Is that fair to say? All three of these archetypes on crack. They aren't necessarily a glass cannon if it wasn't for one technique that the melee community is pretty privy on, especially in the past decade, and that's wobbling. Wobbling is an advanced technique that involves the Ice Climbers to grab their opponent, perform a desync that will lock the opponent in place by grabbing the opponent with Popo and then hitting them with Nana. Continuously pressing A at the correct timing, there you go, you're wobbling. The technique might sound complicated to an outsider, but to any other Ice Climber main, this tech is a standard to their playstyle. It allowed for the Ice Climbers to significantly place higher in the meta. While they weren't winning tournaments due to the faults of the character, it was a great tool in their kit. It was practically a gun that they had. Ice Climbers have an incredible ability to KO opponents off of one correctly guessed grab, but if the opponents play around it, they are heavily punished. There are other characters in Melee who have much better options, and yet aren't considered broken. How is a character that is barely top 8 in the game considered controversial? They rarely make it to grand finals, and they don't have a large amount of players in the community actually playing the character compared to other mains. They have actual problem matchups that make it extremely hard for them to contend against, like Jigglypuff especially, but yet they still have an insane ability to take stocks if they get a grab. In a way, you could say the floor was lava when the Ice Climbers could wobble. Look at EVO 2019, Chudat versus H-Box, Puff versus Ice Climbers. At many times during the set, Puff will just fly away whenever the Ice Climbers approach. This isn't H-Box camping or doing anything wrong, it just starts to show the flaws of the characters. The Ice Climbers want to grab. Puff wants to find an opening while using her superior aerial drift. This left a cut in the community. Many matches against Ice Climbers lean towards more defensive play. Instead of approaching players, people would simply go for more sheepish options, camping near the ledge, going for a gimp, platform camping, air juggling, or the latter. Going for an incredibly aggressive rush down to shut down the Ice Climbers. But again, one mess up and you're going to get grabbed. It's easier said than done. And this was really a factor in how the Ice Climbers were seen in the meta. At lower levels of play, where players were not really fully understanding the game and its depth, Ice Climbers are really deadly, while the best players at the game are usually more equipped at dealing with wobbling. That didn't stop it from being a great technique. A large section of players saw wobbling as borderline toxic. At lower levels of play, it causes people to rage quit matches and not want to enter brackets. Wobbling was joked into oblivion, becoming something that would be milked on stream, as basically becoming a meme overnight. Whenever an Ice Climber main succeeded in wobbling their opponent, the jokes would ensue. As much as these Ice Climber mains weren't trying to be villains, some of them became villains just by succeeding in upsetting players. Whether they wanted to be looked at this way or not, it became part of the persona of playing the Ice Climbers. They were a character that were really deadly at lower levels of play, but had trouble reaching the tippy top of the meta. Granted, you wouldn't really see them winning tournaments because they still have flaws to the character. This created a divide in the community, a knife in the back of all Ice Climber mains. It was time to mention the elephant in the room, and there were two camps: people for wobbling and people against wobbling. The people for wobbling brought up the fact that Ice Climbers would probably drop significantly in the meta with the loss of this technique, saying that they would need this technique in order to stay viable. Ice Climbers struggle against a lot of the floatier characters in the cast, like Peach and Jigglypuff for example, where wobbling is almost a requirement to succeed at the top levels of the game. Many also predicted that the Ice Climber players would either drop the character or they would struggle to maintain the same success in the current meta. Considering the fact that they're already a niche character, people thought that they might go down further in the meta. People against wobbling brought up the fact that it was becoming very toxic. People at lower levels of play weren't really into the technique to begin with, also noting the rising number of Ice Climber players that were succeeding with the technique in brackets, stating that this could harm the long-term health of the game. This ultimately led to a stalemate in the community. While wobbling was allowed for many years in tournaments, it was now being considered banned competitively. And well, it did. In 2019, wobbling began to be banned at many locals until eventually being banned across the board at most tournaments. Now, how has this affected the character? How are the Ice Climbers in 2022? Well, with wobbling banned, the Ice Climbers lost their most consistent kill option, while still being a strong strong, grounded character, it was a major nerf to the Ice Climbers. The Ice Climber mains had to develop stronger desync combos outside of wobbling. This still is a strong aspect to the character to this day, but without wobbling, it left a dent in their viability. While the Ice Climbers only dropped a spot on the most recent melee tier list, many people believe that over time they could possibly drop more, but as of right now, that's yet to be seen. It's definitely apparent that the Ice Climbers require more skill to succeed. Instead of fishing for grabs, the Ice Climbers need to practice grab desyncs, different combo streams, etc, etc. While there are still Ice Climber mains out there, they aren't at the same heights as they were when wobbling was allowed. So I give credit to any Ice Climber main right now. They're harder to play, especially against floatier characters right now, so I give credit to the people actually trying to grind with the character. So in a way, the Ice Climbers are back to being an underdog character in the melee meta. Thank you guys for watching the video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you would like more content, and shout out to my patrons who support the channel. Thank you guys. If you guys want to support the channel in any way, there's a Patreon down below where you get videos early and you can join the Discord community. Thank you guys. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and have a good one. Peace.